we're now joined by Brad Keselowsi, driver of the number 2 Miller Lite Ford for Team Penske. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. If you have one, please raise your hand and we'll get to you. Go right over here to the left to Jerry.
Brad, it's Jerry Fraley of the Dallas Morning News. Team Penske, as we know, has been strong for decades, winning at every level. Is there anything, a new element, a new wrinkle this year that has allowed the Cup team to be successful in a year of big changes? Or is it just a carryover of the Penske strengths?
It was Jerry, right? Nice to meet you, Jerry. Yeah, I think there's been, it takes a lot to win at this level. And a lot of things have to come together, as maybe more accurately said. But, I think if I was to look at a few key points, I would say one of them is from Ford Motor Company and the efforts they've put in. They made a couple really nice moves over the last, 2 or 3 years that probably culminated when they were in a better position to roll out the Mustang than they would have been elsewise. As to where the Mustang came out, and I don't think we missed a step. I think we probably took a step forward with the Mustang. And so that's been very helpful to Team Penske. So credit to Mark Rushbrook and the team there at Ford and the things they've done to do just that. They brought on this guy named Tommy Joso I talked about last week. He's been a big gain for us on the Ford side. And then I think beyond just the Ford specific oval, I would say Doug Yates and his group with the engine side have done a really good job responding to some of the challenges when you make the changes that have been made to the engine and so forth, and kind of staying on their toes. And part of that goes back to Ford again, because I think Ford bringing on Stuart Haas was a good marker for Doug Yates and his group to push them as well. So that culmination has been really strong. Just some strong decisions made by Ford Motor Company that have kind of been high tides for all ships. So if I was to look at anything, I would say that's probably the biggest factor. And it's come together this year with the new car and the rules changes. No problem, Jerry.
We'll come down here to the front to Dustin and then over to Jeff.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Actually, I have 2 questions I want to ask you. First off is, this week with the announcements of group qualifying remaining, the penalties imposed, that it's still more about an entertainment aspect to some degree. And with the announcement of the 2020 schedule, Daytona being the regular season finale, the 3 cutoff races are short tracks and rollables. Obviously, there's about action and excitement. Where is the balance between entertainment and competition for this sport? Obviously, it seems like there's been a shift, and what needs to be looked at as the sport continues to move and make such decisions or look at such decisions?
Sure. Well, I think if I back up, Dustin, to the schedule announcement, I got to say I was pleasantly surprised, somewhat kind of ecstatic and shocked that there was as many changes as there was. I didn't see that one coming. So I think that was a good shot in the arm for the entire sport. And I think that's an example of changes you can make that don't compromise competition for entertainment. I don't always believe that you have to trade. That's maybe what I'm trying to say. And the schedule change is a direct reflection of that. I think it's important to keep the schedule fresh. I think it's important to have new ideas and to keep up with, some of the challenges in the marketplace, whether it be the Olympics or whether it be markets that have made significant investments. So I was pretty excited to see that personally. And, I just go back to what I said earlier. I don't think it has to always be a trade-off. I think you can make the competition and the entertainment better without always having to sacrifice one or the other. And the notion that you can't it's always been very frustrating to me. Those ideas are the ones that I think you should always throw out the window right away. Anyone who tells you have to trade and has an idea that requires a trade. So as far as where the bouncing mark is, when I put my race car driver hat on, I'll be honest, I put a concerted effort to say I don't care as long as I have the fastest car of the group. then everything else will figure its way out. So it's a tough line for the sport to walk. Obviously, the entertainment factor is important, and the integrity is important with the competition side. I'm not sure I'm the right person to always give an answer. I think at the end of the day, the fans are pretty smart, and they'll give you their answer, and they'll answer you with ratings and attendance.
Second question is, we're coming up on 10 years since your Talladega win, your first Cup win.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, at that point, you were in a position where it didn't look like there was room at Hendrick Motorsports at that time, especially with the 4-car limits back then. How did that win further your career, set things in motion? I think if I remember, I think Penske had kind of talked with you before, so there was already that communication. Did that win leapfrog you to leading to Penske, or was it just a nice thing, and it's a nice thing to think about 10 years later?
And I'd like to thank Dustin that it opened some doors for me. It's hard to say because none of us have complete control of our destiny. But when I look out the window, I'm not sure I would have. To your point, I'm not sure I would have ended up at Penske if I hadn't won that race. It was a major marker. It opened up, in my mind at least, but I can't speak for Roger or Discount Tire. It opened up the window for me to get the Discount Tire deal, which I needed to really feel good about driving for Team Penske, because that opened up the Xfinity Series for me, opened up the team development side that I thought was going to be so critical to our success, and to kind of get Penske on its feet. If you recall, they were in a bad place at the time. And I don't know if that would have happened without winning that race. Maybe it would have. I don't know. It's a better question for Roger and Discount Tire. But either way, I'm glad it happened. I'm thankful. And I wouldn't trade it for anything else. No problem.
We'll go to Jeff.
A couple of the drivers today have been talking about how the downforce and the increased corner speeds taken a bigger toll on their bodies this year. Have you felt that at all? And in what form do you feel that physically?
Yeah, I think the cars are obviously a little hotter, and there's a number of reasons for that. More on throttle time, probably more specifically on the shorter tracks. They have the right side window in, so it's the difference between driving around with the windows down and with the windows up in a really hot car. So yeah, I would agree that they're definitely more physically demanding, and that's part of the challenge. That one I don't think really bothers me. I think it's not dangerous. It's just a little harder. So I think going into Bristol next week, that'll be the big challenge. And I think I said that last week in the press conference after the race. That race, I think, has a lot of people on pins and needles, not just physically, which they should be physically, but with the cars themselves, Jeff. I think the cars are really going to see a lot of load and a lot of stress, especially if the temperatures are pretty cool, which generally they are in the spring Bristol race. So, I think at the moment that the drivers are definitely feeling it a little bit more, not to the point where I think it's dangerous or anything like that. So I'm not too concerned about it, but I am concerned about some of these higher load tracks that the cars and teams will be a little bit behind, and that could have a big effect on the race.